My brave girl. She doesn't bark. That doesn't bother her.
Oh, really?
But she's afraid of little things. Like, she's a rescue, too. She's afraid of things like if you, you know, you open a trash can. If you,
really?
You kind of open it up, you know. If you open a bag or a trash can around her, it scares her so much.
Really?
And she takes off running to the back of the house. And I never understood that. I said maybe my mom thinks something happened to her.
She was traumatized. Yeah, traumatized.
So something happened to her where she sees bags and she won't do it.
Right, yeah.
She's afraid of it. And
she was traumatized in some way.
And she's not afraid of anything else but that.
Now, that's interesting.
But if you, I said thunder, lightning, loud noises, not afraid. But if you open up a bag in front of her, she will hide.
That's quite interesting, yeah.
And okay, cool.
Can you, before we start, can you move your mic to the other side?
Okay. Sorry. Can it turn over?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Hold on. Is this better?
Yeah, that's good.
Great. I was just making sure my phones are off.
Ooh, and also just give me a clap real quick for the camera.
Sure.
Perfect. All right.
All right. Well, can you give me your first and last name?
My name is Lydwina Hurst.
Okay,
Lydwina Hurst.
And how long have you been a resident of Gordon Plaza?
For over 30 years.
So I want to take me back to the very beginning, when you were searching for your first home.
Well, I came about my home here because a friend of mine had just purchased a home here, well, beginning to purchase a home here. Mm-hmm. However, he became ill, was diagnosed with cancer, and he didn't know anything about no one had told him about the landfill. He wasn't aware of that. So they gave him X number of months to live. So he asked me, would I come in if I wanted to purchase the home? So I said, yeah, because, it was a new brick home. And back then, brick homes, now you don't see too many big brick homes being built unless that's what you request. Mm-hmm. So very modern, and so I jumped for it. Mm-hmm. And that's when I was excited about moving back here. And then when I moved back here, I began to hear the little conversations about possibly finding garbage and broken glass, trash, and all of this, and digging up your yard. Mm-hmm. And then I look around, and there were flyers on the door about meetings being held at the center on the corner. Well, so I started attending those meetings.
So before, how long were you living here? Where were you living before?
I was living in Uptown area.
So why did you decide to leave Uptown? Did you want to? Was there a particular community that you wanted to live in? That you thought that you would try to live in before you moved to Gordon Plaza?
I'm from Uptown,
right? The
Uptown area. I always lived Uptown. However, I had not given it a thought of moving downtown. Yeah. But when I saw the home and everything, and I really liked it, mm-hmm. and so
it's what drew you to the home was the modernness of it.
Correct.
And it's the brick home.
Correct.
And it was an opportunity
modern home.
Yeah. And it was an opportunity to take over a home.
Right, in advance.
Wow. So it made it just much easier for you.
Correct.
During that time, how difficult was it for people to get a home? What was the market like then?
Well, I think the market was pretty flourishing. Mm-hmm. However, it was somewhat difficult for an African-American woman to obtain a home. Single woman. At the time, I was divorced. So
why was it difficult?
Huh?
Why was it difficult?
I think mainly being a black woman, number one, because when I moved back here, the mortgage rates were so high. The interest rates, on the mortgage was so high.
Really?
That, yes, the percentage rate was high. So I searched around to get a loan to refinance the home. And I was turned down once or twice. One of the companies, and I can't recall the name, I did file complaints against them. And I think eventually they went out of business.
And this is when you moved here?
Correct. That's what I'm talking about.
Whoa. So where were you living? Were you renting before then, uptown, or you always just lived in a house?
I lived in the house,
Okay.
yeah.
Got it. So let's talk about, I really am trying to get a sense of what the mood was, when you moved back here. So you moved back here, you have your house, obviously it's a new community.
Right.
And everyone's really excited.
Right.
What was the general feeling?
Newly built homes, everybody's excited. A lot of, the majority of the people, a lot of the people talked about being first-time home buyers. So this was very exciting. And not thinking at the time, these homes were marketed low middle income families, but marketed to African Americans only.
Really?
Yes.
Did they specifically,
It said, after some research, after all of this, you're finding out that you're living on a landfill. You hear where it's marketed to low and middle and moderate income families, African American families.
So do you know that, most of the people that lived in these homes, you have people that came from the projects that were living in the desired community already. Were they transitioning from having their apartment in the projects to finally having their home?
Yes.
Yeah, that's some of the stories you were getting?
Correct.
So can you tell me a little bit about some of the neighbors that were back here? Just, you're still here. And what was this community like initially when you came back here? What did we see around us?
Well, there was Press Park across the street, which was townhouses, apartment complex that were built by HUD, by Hanover. So there were HUD. So there were a lot of people in the community, but the majority of people were very friendly. And there were 5 houses on this block at the time. You see, there's only 3 because after Katrina, 2 were torn down because the people didn't come back. The neighbors didn't come back, and overall it's grown to be, it's a friendly, a nice community.
With a lot of kids, just kind of your
There
typical...
were a lot of kids back here then. Yeah. Now you don't hardly see any. You see a couple of kids at the apartment complex that they recently built a couple of years ago that it should not have built on this site. However, that's another story for another day. But other than that, you don't see hardly any kids.
Because I guess I'm trying to picture you go through the American dream.
Correct.
And so you have this brick home in this modern neighborhood, kids everywhere, and you feel like you finally got that piece of it.
Correct.
And for some people it takes many years to get to. So you told me, how long were you living here before just the whispers and the chatter of...
I don't think it may be about 2 years or less.
2 years or less?
Yes.
Before all of the chatter about this possibly
Correct.
being a landfill.
Correct.
What did it start off with? Where did you first hear the conversation?
Just in talking to some of the neighbors and receiving flyers on my door that they were holding meetings at the community center that was located at Press and Benefit.
And when did you decide to start attending the meetings?
Immediately. I decided to see what was going on.
And what did you find, or what did you learn?
I found that people were very displeased because of what they were finding when they dug up their yards to plant vegetables. We had neighbors that had vegetables they had planted to do their gardens. And then, so it was meetings after meetings after meetings. And by 1994, I think it was, they declared it, EPA declared it a Superfund site.
So they said they were finding trash?
Trash, glass, bottles with skulls and the X on it, crosses on it, the X, letting you know that it was contaminated, just all kind of stuff. And if you dig now far enough, you will find you still find trash and stuff.
Have you ever found anything in your yard?
Oh yeah, trash. I didn't find the canes like some of them found, because I didn't. After you hearing about it, you start not digging that far, you know.
So what was your initial reaction? You have lived here 2 years and a little under 2 years, and you learned that your home is possibly on a toxic site.
Landfill. I didn't know what to think. You have all kind of thoughts going through your mind. Is this something I shouldn't have done? Because you're looking for the American dream, and it almost seemed there has to. My thought was, there has to be a resolution for this. It can't be as bad as they're saying it is. And until the soil was tested on numerous occasions to find out that they had over 100 cancer-causing chemicals on this site. And looking back, doing research and finding out that it was a land dump, and then it was closed, and then in 1965 they opened it again to dump garbage and trash from Hurricane Betsy. When you start finding out about all of that, it's mind-boggling.
Right.
Why would the people, the politicians in the city of New Orleans, build homes for people on this site?
So when you what age were you when you moved here?
I was in my early 40s.
Your early 40s. So you hear about this, you question what's going on, you start to do a little more digging. When these revelations really started to come about where this site was, where these homes were located on, was there thought too at the time, like, I've got to get out of here, I got to sell my house, I have to leave?
At the time, I could not do that. Financially, my investments were here.
And when people invest in a house, they typically hope to build equity.
Correct.
And pass it on, hopefully.
Price range and all of that. Being a single parent, I could not do that at the time.
So this
and I was excited about, as I stated, about moving here because of the cost and a newly built home.
Right. So when did this fight really pick up? You know, was it you heard about this and there were whispers and there were meetings and it kind of died down a little, or when?
No,
you know?
I think it began to continue escalating, because then you had politicians involved, you had special scientists involved, you had medical teams involved, you had attorneys involved. So all of this was evolving as the time went on. So
tell me about this block. You said that there were 5 or 6 houses here.
There was 5 houses. There's 3 right now. There was 2 more.
The people, did you know a lot of the people on this block?
I didn't know them prior to moving down here.
Well, of course, yeah. Well, but did you know when you moved them, you were close, you talked often to your neighbors?
Yes.
How many of them are still with us, or I know that a lot of people back here cancer has been traced to, you know, be a cause of death for many people back here. How many people surrounding us within this block passed of cancer?
Well, my friend who was living here, of course, he died from cancer. I don't think he was in the house a year, maybe a little over a year. So I don't know if it was contributed to this or not. The neighbor that was next door was diagnosed with cancer, but I think he's still alive. He had to have brain cancer. He had to have surgery. I am a breast cancer survivor. So the neighbors who were here, there was another lady, the lady that lives next door, as a matter of fact, she just died of old age and other complications. Oh. However, she lived in a neighborhood, but she moved into the house after her sister-in-law died. And I couldn't tell you exactly what her sister-in-law died of, because, she died right after I moved down here.
So, you know, a number of people here.
But there are people around the neighborhood. There's a number of people around in this area that have died of cancer. Mm-hmm. There's a number of people, a large number of people who have been diagnosed with cancer, respiratory illnesses, abdominal illnesses, rashes. In 2019, the Times-Picayune wrote an article and said we were the second highest tumor, the tumor registry, second highest causing area with cancer in the state of Louisiana.
Oh, wow. So are you seeing that? Weren't you fearful to stay here?
Yes, but at the same time, you're going through so much. You know, your daily living. You can't just jump up and move somewhere else. And you're looking for a solution, thinking that everybody will do it the right way, although you make this wrong right. And in the meantime, that has not happened as of today. So you're having these meetings, you're meeting with the politicians, you're meeting with the experts, medical, you're meeting with the attorneys, and then all of it gets just by the wayside. You know, we've had several lawsuits, civil lawsuit, I can't recall the year right now. However, when it was, the judge ruled in our favor, the attorneys had 9 plaintiffs to represent a class action lawsuit, which was amazing to me. Those 9 plaintiffs were made whole. The attorneys walked away with millions of dollars, and the rest of us was left back here.
You talked about going through so much during that time. You know, what were you personally going through at the same time?
Well, you're trying to everyday living. At the time, I was running my own business. You working, and just the everyday living, trying to do better in life. The daily stress and activities of the day. So that's going through a lot, besides the stressful situation of living back here. Then the EPA came in 1994, declared it a Superfund site. They come in and they decide they want to dig. Instead of moving the residents out, dig 2 feet of soil, put a textile barrier, not move us out while they did it. Your car is full of all kind of white particles in the morning. I did not allow them on my site, on my property at all, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because they came in with hazard suits on from the top of their head to the bottom of their feet, and as I stated, they left us back here, and digging 2 feet of soil, putting a barrier there is a Band-Aid effect. So if you're not going to move me out, you're not going up under my house, you're not going up under the concrete, and you have tons and tons of garbage here, what kind of protection is that?
Do you think that this would have happened to any other community in
I
New
will
Orleans?
always say that if there was one white family back here, we would not be back here now. We would have been moved out immediately. This is environmental racism.
So did your child experience anything? Any illnesses?
Well, at the time, my youngest daughter was here, which she, in a couple of years, she got married. But I had my grandson, my oldest grandson was here. And I used to keep him all the time while his mother was in school and working. And I used to have my nieces and nephews, my great nieces and nephews over, playing in the yard.
Were you ever worried about them playing in the yard?
Well, at the time I wasn't in the beginning because you didn't have the results of all these surveys, all these testing and everything to come out and say that they had all these chemicals. You know, all of this going on took some time.
Right.
So there was a swing back there. They had a large swimming pool back there, and they would come and have parties and enjoy themselves in the yard. My oldest grandson still has asthma.
Wow. And you think as a result of
and I attribute it to that result. The results of being here and playing on this toxic syrup.
So when was the initial response of, or when did the fight to ask for a fully funded relocation begin? Did it initially start with asking for a fully funded relocation, or did it eventually evolve into that?
Well, it started with Agricultural Street Landfill Incorporated because it was Press Park and Garden Plaza. However, as I stated, the attorneys, with the lawsuits and everything, it didn't go our way. We were left back here. After Katrina, they didn't want us to come back here. But then after a while, you have a home. I personally looked around to purchase another home. Road Home would not give us any money.
Why not?
Because we were on a Superfund site.
So they wouldn't give you money to fix a house?
No, they didn't in the beginning. I came back about 2 months after Katrina. I lived in the uptown area. However, I was came back and got involved with the fight to rebuild New Orleans. So when I went to the first meeting, which was with General Honoré, Oliver Thomas, and some other people, there was a large map on the wall. You did not see this area on the map at all. So I questioned that. After a period of time, attending some of the other meetings, they showed the little site, but it was in red.
What did that mean?
That they didn't want us to come back here. It was a Superfund site. It was contaminated. However, before I came back, there were other people who had came back and redid their homes. Because you're not getting any money from Road Home. And if you don't have any money to purchase another home, the homes, although they were, damaged homes, sold by Road Home, or you could purchase them, you still had to redo that home. Eventually, I did get something from Road Home, but it was not very much after some years and continuously fighting. So this back here has been a continuous fight just about since I've lived back here.
Do you ever get tired of the fight?
I don't get tired. You do, as a human, you get tired, you get frustrated, it's stressful. However, I am determined that I will continue to fight until we get a fully funded relocation. I'm going to go back. When it was Agriculture Street Landfill, we were requesting to be relocated, even prior to the EPA coming back here digging up soil. And after the lawsuits went in our favor, but we didn't receive any benefits from it, we decided, the Garden Plaza residents decided to incorporate and do Residents of Garden Plaza, Inc. And that's when we started fighting for a fully funded relocation.
So when you came up with there's a particular number, I think it's 35 million.
Yes.
How did we reach that number?
Okay, we started off with a lesser amount some years ago. However, over the years, that amount to purchase a home has increased. Initially we were when it was Agricultural Street Landfill Incorporated, the attorneys were asking for emotional stress, medical expenses, and lots of other items. We decided that we were not going to ask for medical expenses, for emotional stress. We just want to be moved. Now, if you price a home this home that I have here in another location that is not located on a Superfund site, it's anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000 or more.
How much was this home?
This home was maybe $100,000 and some back then. However, and then to move, to bring a truck in, pack up all my belongings, and move to another site, and we had experts from Tulane. We had real estate advisors where we did a feasibility report to break it down to what it would cost to move us into another house and with the moving expenses, and that's how we came up with the $35 million. Now, if you keep procrastinating, year after year, it's going to go up more, which I hope that doesn't happen, because right now we're closer now than we ever been.
So you see, this fight would lasted a few decades, and we're seeing the conversation about Gordon Plaza pick up more and more.
Definitely.
Now, with the conversation of building a solar farm back here, what do you think when you heard initially that those are the plans and that they're taking $2 million for the capital bond program with the city to examine the site to be the future site of a solar farm, and that's what they're going to do, or that's the project hopefully that they can take so they can get the funds to move you all?
They have the funds. They don't have to get the funds from the solar site. There are billions of dollars right now in this city. Over $300 million worth of bonds were sold. There's pockets of money large amounts of money, billions of dollars, millions of dollars that came down from the government, federal government. And that's nice that they're going to put a solar plant back here.
So you're okay with that?
I'm okay with that because they're not bringing in any human beings to live back here. To be honest with you, I don't care what they put back here. However, what we are requesting is that you don't come dig up anything for whatever you want to put back here until you move us out of here, because you're coming back to disturb the soil, and that we've had enough of that.
Right.
And that's a hazard to us, to our health and our well-being. All we asking is for the fully funded relocation, and I don't understand why it's so difficult for the politicians to realize that. We understand that this administration, nor the last previous administration, nor a couple of administrations before, inherited this problem, but it's still the city. These are people we elect and put servants for the people who we put into office, who we pay their salary, and you're sitting there debating whether to move us off this site or not. You're playing with our lives. I'm a senior citizen now. I cannot go out and work and make a loan to purchase another home. So when I move from here, which is why we're asking for at least $500,000 per person, I want to be debt free. And I think I'm not asking for anybody to give me anything. I know I deserve that.
Do you think that, obviously with the cost of living in the city of New Orleans going as high as it is, is it even possible for you to do that move and to find a decent home in an area that is not on toxic soil?
I pray to God that it's a possibility, and I think it is with that amount of money. But as I stated, if you sit around and let us sit here longer, it's going to go up.
Do you have any faith in the mayor right now? She's been talking about this very much, even meeting with the EPA administrator in Washington, D.C. recently.
However, the EPA administrator was back here.
Right.
We met with him also. I've heard a lot of talk from the mayor. She's into her 5th year as mayor, her 2nd term. However, I've heard a lot, but I haven't seen too much action from the mayor. Any action at all, as a matter of fact.
There was some concern that some people didn't want to do anything because they felt as though it would give a false hope of, there was the last fight that you all had about getting the budget line item, and Jay Banks didn't want to vote for it because he felt like it would give hope that they're going to be moved tomorrow. But you all know that this is a process that takes a while.
We're hoping that it happens expeditiously. I disagree with that fact that it may take a while, but we're hoping just a couple of months because we've been back here long enough. No I think with Jay Banks, well, I'm going to leave that alone.
Okay.
I don't want to comment on that.
Okay.
But we know exactly what we want. We live back here. We've been back here decades. And we know what we want. We know what is necessary to get us from back here. And that's all we're asking for. You can't say you don't have the money. There's billions of dollars here. You find money for everything else. You loan money and you take money from the city to, they took money to give to Sewage and Water Board and say that they will loan it to Sewage and Water Board and they will get their money when the federal government sends down the amount of money and they will replace that money. Why can't they do that with us? But you have enough money here now to take the $35 million and start the process of moving us out here. And it's not that difficult because we can help you with the transition.
So at the time that the Gordon Plaza was built, who was mayor?
Dutch
Morial. So you have a black mayor.
We've had 2 black mayors since we've been back. Dutch, his son, Mark, Sidney Bartholomew.
Yeah. So don't you think that, I know that we put it in the terms of environmental racism, but is it fair to say that you had a black mayor and, he had some knowledge of this landfill, I would assume, being back here as well? Did he ever say anything to anyone, or did Mark ever say anything, or anyone? One of the black mayors who say, maybe we shouldn't build that back there, or maybe we shouldn't do that because that was toxic soil.
If they did, we weren't aware of it.
Right.
And it doesn't seem like anyone did. Because I would think that if you're mayor, you could have put a stop to it.
Right. Do you ever question why they didn't?
Yes, but talking to politicians, you get all kind of answers.
What conversations did you have with Mitch Landrieu, because he came back here?
Mitch Landrieu came back here. I was not involved directly in the meeting. I was back here and I was on the outside, but he sat in the meeting with at Shannon's house, and there were just about everybody from City Hall was back here, so it was really crowded in there. But I think he definitely said that he would rather build a prison than to move us from back here, and he did build a prison. Now that's what I was told. I didn't hear him say that, but it's very obvious that none of them cared because none of them did anything.
How does it feel to know that you're in a state of where people you're forgotten about, don't care?
Don't care. They don't have a heart. I don't know how they sleep at night. And the statements before was always, we don't have the money, with this, that, and the other, all kind of excuses. And now look how long we sat in budget meetings from October through November to finally get somebody to say, Helena Moreno, to get it in the budget. It still has not. We still do not have a line item for allocation or distribution of funds. So that's what we're fighting for now. It's one fight after the other. And I don't feel like we should have to stand there as citizens of New Orleans, tax-paying citizens. Nobody ever came back here and said you don't have to pay taxes. You're constantly fighting to have the grass cut on city property. You're constantly fighting. There's a house behind me that's been sitting there since Katrina that's abandoned. The tree came up during Ida, and it's blocking my fence line. The root, as one of my neighbors, Jesse, came and was able to cut the tree back, but the big, large root is still blocking my. So I'm constantly calling City Hall about that, calling your council person with no results. I have a composition book of 311 numbers and conference case numbers that I've called over the years about various issues back here. So even while you're back here, living on this toxic soil, fighting to get off, they still won't help you with the quality of life. Your quality of life. That's inhumane. That's like being enslaved in your own home. Then with the pandemic, so that's two issues we got. The pandemic, environmental. The toxic soil, environmental. So how could you sit there and be so cold-blooded? And you could talk about everything else and do whatever else you want, put up crime cameras, do this, go to certain other neighborhoods, have the money to do whatever, and you can't move us out. There's only 50-some residents back here right now. The city says there's 67 properties. There's 44 homeowners. There's renters back here. But in that $35 million, when we allocated that, when we requested that, we took into consideration the renters and everybody else who are living back here. So start the process with moving out the 44 and take care of the renters and move us all from back here. Then you can come in and do whatever you want back here.
I understand. This is my final question to you. If there's anything that you can directly say to the city administration, and to honestly the federal government as well, since they seem to want to be involved?
I'm asking that you all immediately move us from back here with a fully funded relocation prior to coming back here and to start digging up soil for anything. Definitely a fully funded relocation. The money we are requesting, that it be allocated and start being distributed so that we can move into the homes of our choice immediately, debt free.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That is it. That's all I have.
I hope I didn't get too frustrated.